Part 1. We've traveled through Tokyo. Who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 1. Although more than 13 million people gathered in a small area and tried every means to transform this land into the shape of an international metropolis, even though Kyoto people always think that there is no culture here, it still cannot stop most Japanese people from yearning for this place, because this is Tokyo. Asaba Kazuma also thought this way when he was still alive. But today, or maybe yesterday, he died. In short, when I opened my eyes again, a soul from Blue Star had successfully occupied the magpie's nest. He got up from the bed, and after absorbing Kinyo Kazuma's memories, he got up and went to the bathroom. After washing with cold water, he felt much more awake. Looking at the thin and beautiful young man in the mirror, he does not have the dark circles and bags under his eyes in his previous life. Instead, he looks like a fragile porcelain bottle, much like himself when he was young in his previous life. He stretched out his hand and put it against the mirror, looked at the burning eyes on his handsome face, and said with a chuckle, "From today on, you are Asaba Kazuma." This was the 7th time he looked in the mirror after getting out of the bath. All kinds of unpleasantness in the past life, just pretend they don't exist. Starting a new life is the most important thing. His eyes looked at the light curtain that was hanging in mid-air like a holographic projection, and lines of subtitles appeared again. Kyunyulu, Love is War 2077, we are here to serve you wholeheartedly. Tips. Affected by the phenomenon of artificial aesthetic degradation that has frequently appeared on various social platforms in recent years, the love and marriage rates of young adjusters have plummeted, and the crisis of declining birth rate has become more obvious. In order to ensure the number of newborns, the Low Birth Rate Countermeasures Committee has teamed up with Faishi Entertainment Co., Limited to develop an SLG love simulation game based on the 77th generation panoramic simulation technology based on its popular love game IP Kyunyulo series to revive the aesthetic glory. This game is dedicated to providing a wonderful encounter for young adjusters after the game starts. The system will DIY a customized girlfriend of different styles and exclusive to you based on the player's interests and hobbies, as your simulation object. To make their hearts flutter, to make them shy, to make them fall asleep, the system will simulate your future with them all the way. After the simulation is over, the system will generate comments and ratings for the bound player. Asaba Kazuma obtaining high ratings will not only open a random gift package, but also absorb the essence of the skills and talents of the beautiful girl from the simulated future to help you become a handsome hexagonal guy who can go to the hall, go to the kitchen, guard the prey, and warm the bed. Friendly reminder, the customized girlfriend generated by the system meets the following conditions. 1. A beautiful girl with good looks who meets the XP of young adjusters, is not affected by ZZZQ, and can be heartily recognized by mainstream groups. 2. High-quality women who can produce high-quality skills and talents. Young adjuster, click to receive your exclusive game. Rightward arrow, click here to get it. Leftward arrow. It can only be said that the system may be late, but it will never be absent. This sudden strangeness in the system first appeared on the computer. The moment his name appeared, his first reaction was, my privacy has been invaded by big data. But he soon understood that this was not the case. Who can play with big data and directly invade their own brain? Thinking of this, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Falling in love in reality? Don't even talk about dogs. Ever since his college roommate fell in love in his previous life, he lived like a dog. He borrowed money from his brothers every day. Even after graduation, he got engaged and was defrauded of 300,000 yuan in gift money by his ex. He went to court. He decided not to get married easily. Where can it be more interesting than having a relationship with a customized paper figurine girlfriend in an SLG game that requires no responsibility, and squeezing the residual value of the customized girlfriend? Use paper people to strengthen your own strength, and then take off in reality, shouting to the world, I don't need to join the consortium, I am the consortium, Isn't it more interesting than immersing yourself in love and love? Thinking of this, he suddenly felt a little greedy for customizing his girlfriend's body, but the residual value is too much. Thinking of this, he decisively clicked to receive it. Panel expansion. Number of world simulations, 5/5. Number of corrections per week. Binded host, Asahi Kazuma, exclusive. Bound love partner, none. After playing the game for a week, I can only unlock 2 customized girlfriends. He looked at the one on the left first. It was a mixed-race girl wearing a Korean-style 3/4 sleeved V-neck shirt. She wore no stockings under the pure white pleated skirt, revealing her cute calves, which were so white that they were dazzling. The blonde hair shawl is neatly combed, the skin is fair, and the face is delicate. Although he is unsmiling, when those eyes look at you, they seem to be able to speak. Name, Lily Garcia. Talent, unique writing style, language genius. Skills, proficient in 10 languages, Chinese/English/Russian/Spanish/Semi/Portuguese/German/Japanese/Indian. Oh, what about the setting of a beautiful girl from the literature department who is good at multiple languages? Asahi Kazuma turned to look at another standing painting. She was a girl with bangs hanging down and looking a little dull. She is not like the former, who makes people's hearts flutter at first sight, and her body even looks a little slender. But if you take a closer look at the vertical painting, you will find the beautiful hair, beautiful red lips and thin eyebrows, arms like snow lotus roots, and the loose sportswear can hardly cover up the pair of tall and straight nose. Especially when his eyes fell on her, the girl's lowered head timidly raised, and the CV's built-in voice sounded simultaneously. Mr. Editor-in-Chief, is it possible for a person like me who rots in a blind corner of the room to walk in the sunshine? There is a saying that if a woman lowers her head and cannot see her toes, she is extremely beautiful in the world. Tell me honestly, what is your relationship with the Billion brothel next door? Asahi Kazuma glanced at the text next to the standing painting. Name, Rina Ishihara. Talent, shape-shaping, color sensitivity. Skill, painting specialization. What kind of gloomy book artist and language genius girl? Are you kidding? Do you still have to choose? Do you know how scary a concept it is to be proficient in 10 languages? Just being a translator will give me a lifetime of food and drink. Who likes such a gloomy girl? He made his choice decisively. Choose Ishihara Rina. Ishihara Rina has been selected. Do you want to consume 1 simulation time? Yes. Tisk. Cuteness is not worth mentioning in front of hugeness. Before he could think about it, the system beep sounded. Simulation starts. During the simulation process, please adjust your body angle and maintain a comfortable sleeping position. He gently stroked his face with a sick smile on his face. I am now a young and attractive fruit. With my pretty face, I can't afford to take advantage of those scumbags in real life. Falling in love in reality? Don't even talk about dogs, just open up the situation for me. He came to the bed and lay down, and saw a burst of light in his sight. His consciousness seemed to be pulled out of his body and flew to an unknown space. A curtain of light spread out in front of him. However, when his consciousness was pulled into the nameless space, he could no longer see the turbulent flow of data flashing across the system panel in mid-air. Diddy affected by #UN%, the connection to the Kunulu server failed and the customized girlfriend cannot be generated. #UN% energy invasion. System collapse, oh. Logical reconstruction based on #UN% energy, the system customizes the name of this energy, conceptual energy power of time and space. The underlying logic has changed, and the system framework has undergone unknown mutations on the premise of maintaining the basic game framework. All permissions have been delegated, and the highest permissions of Kunulu have been revised to Asahi Kazuma. Search the host relationship network, appear similar to the customized girlfriend was detected and started to pull. Pull successfully, world simulation begins. When the columns of text on the panel disappeared, an obscure light also rose in two residential buildings belonging to different areas of Tokyo. In the nameless space, Kinya Kazuma stared blankly at the message popping up in the void. Current selection, Rina Ishihara. Initial state, shy to meet people. What the hell is being ashamed of seeing others? Kinya Kazuma was stunned for a moment. Could it be that the game starts in the hotel? Kinya Kazuma sighed, is this game so intense to begin with? His hand clicking on the light screen was a little faster. Prospect summary. Your grades were good, and your family had high expectations for your future, so you came to Tokyo to study and lived in a rented house from a relative. You are born weak. Fortunately, in the past 2 years, as your physical condition has improved, your grades have also improved, and your family can safely let you live alone. One day, you accidentally knocked down a girl with a mysterious background in school. After you apologized and left, you were threatened by her admirer. You had a high fever that night, and you were living alone with no one to take care of you. After your fever was relieved by luck, you decided to replan your future life. Isayu Kazuma was stunned for a moment. This simulation seemed to be the same as the original owner's experience, but it seemed unable to discover his identity as a time traveler. Okay, this simulation is quite realistic, and the sense of immersion is here. You'd better be able to deduce the future. He laughed, but the plot in the later stages of the game is said to be more cyberpunk, and I haven't seen any prosthetics transforming people in reality. He continued to read. When you were young and frivolous, you thought about your future, and you decided. Sprint towards the University of Tokyo. Discovered by an artist agency. Join the Bosozoku. Free simulation. The option is directly eliminated. The Bosozoku coxcomb head is too ugly. Option, become an artist and want to do a good love simulation? I'm afraid that after having a child, a fanatical female fan will open the door with flowers in hand and stab him in 3 ways. He tried clicking the free simulation option. A pop-up window pops up. Free simulation requires 5 simulation opportunities, and the current number of simulations is insufficient. Come on, now the number of times the simulator can be fully recharged is only 5 times, so I can't afford to offend him. Choose Sprint for the University of Tokyo. On the first day back to school, when I went to the bathroom to pay homage to the god of poverty, I heard a student from the next class mentioning that a certain female English teacher had a bad reputation. Your English scores are not ideal, but an English teacher sees that you are good looking and is willing to spend his spare time teaching you to study. You feel that you have more hope of sprinting to the University of Tokyo. In after-school tutoring, your academic ability has improved. Along with the text, what came to his mind was a scene of a female teacher wearing a women's suit top and hip-hugging skirt, tucking the ends of her hair behind her ears, revealing her face with a black mole, and instructing him in his studies. A little knowledge from Japanese textbooks was stuffed into his mind. Although it was only a few fragments of learning, it was indeed as if he had been sitting at the table studying for a period of time. Unfortunately, before he could recall it, the deduction continued, interrupting the joy of learning. During the teaching guidance, the teacher discovered your incredible talent. She invited you to go home and continue to receive teaching. You choose. Teachers after class guidance. Point MP4. Teacher, this is not allowed. There is no one in the office now. Free simulation. Is your guidance serious? We've traveled through Tokyo. Who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 3. You thought, this wife's hairstyle looks very dangerous, but you remembered the shocking AI, Lin.jpg that you found on the internet last night, and decided to leave the sleepless night to a cleaner girl. You refused accepted her request. Stuck at the last minute, you came to the Wenku headquarters and met the senior who asked you to join the company. Sitting at your workstation, you decide. Start working. Take advantage of the situation and start being a salary thief. Go and ask your seniors to take care of you. Free simulation. The options are the choices of normal people. Select it to unlock the M, social animal version, advanced direction. M directions can also be unlocked randomly: humiliation, mental destruction, brainwashing, multiple people, personality destruction, pain, fatigue, coercion, awkwardness, public, camera, sleep ban, etc. Asabakazimo liked this option very much, but he chose. Senior failed to refuse your request and began to teach you how to analyze. System prompt: you have unlocked the new career achievement, achievement point add 1. Your work experience is improving. You have mastered the basic skills of communicating with light novel authors. You begin to interact with the authors under your supervision. One of them, whose pen name is Kimura Ferry, has aroused your interest because of his unique writing style. The author Kimura Goblin, who contributed to you, was not selling well and was about to be cut off. She went to the editorial department and chatted with you about the plot of the new book. You gave her suggestions seriously. 2 months have passed, and the library version of the light novel Dark Elf Don't Want to Be Confessed Volume 2, published by Kimura Ferry, has exceeded 70,000 copies in a single month. You can become a regular in advance. That night, you chatted with her all night in the office about the plot. You knew that the illustration industry was already showing signs of buying illustrations and giving away toilet paper, so you told Kimura Ferry that you decided to use resources to replace her with a more suitable illustrator. Kimura Ferry agreed and recommended to you a netizen she knew. She opened Twitter and found a friend named Rina-chan from the private message in the background, and showed you what Rina-chan sent her painter's works. You choose. Accept the heroine from passerby. If you choose her, how will you repay your kindness, Ferry? Cruel rejection. Free simulation. Kinya Kazuma almost shed tears. Finally appeared. Where did Ishihara Rina come from as a passerby heroine? It's so difficult to even appear in the simulator. He decisively chose. As the options appeared, the image of a petite blonde girl appeared in Asaba Kazuma's mind. She was leaning next to herself, who looked older, flipping through Rina-chan's paintings on her mobile phone. Kimura Ferry? No, Lily Garcia. Asahi Kazuma was stunned for a moment. The Kimura Ferry who appeared in front of him was Lily Garcia, another customized girlfriend he could have chosen. Although he didn't understand why she appeared so frequently in Ishihara Rina's simulation, he was quickly attracted by the style of Rina-chan. This style of painting is unique. It is quite explosive in the entire book world. Why haven't I heard of this person before? As a refugee from Station P and a frequent visitor to Pink Apps, he dare not say that Kinfan has gone too far, but teachers like Mao Yunio X, who specializes in lowly succubus style, and teacher Shindo Eru, who is known as the pioneer of Forbidden D, still have some understanding. But Rina-chan's notebook, he really has no impression at all. When the painting style explodes to a certain extent, the works will go out of the circle in a small area. For a book like this, the plot is lackluster, but the graphic and expressive painting style is so explosive that it gives people the feeling of a perfect combination of violent aesthetic comics and feminine charm. With just one hand of this god, he can be ranked among the top 3 in the Tiger's Den Book of the Year. This is quite a terrifying picture tension. Even if the plot is removed, you can still feel that this Rina-chan is using her expressive painting style to ravage the reader's eyes. Every detail seems to be saying to the readers, "Look at my paintings. Look at the paintings I painted." Qian Yufengma took a breath of cold air. Rina Ishihara, so terrifying. This strength, in Pink software, must be at the level of Snow Girl of the Widow that has been continuously entered on the Pink software hot list. It can perform repeatedly on the ranking list without relying on any plot, just with its painting skills. He would like to call her teacher. Select Accept Passerby Heroine, Rina-chan, Let me check your level. You accepted Miss Fairy's recommendation. You couldn't refuse this passionate painting style. You looked at Miss Fairy's slender body, perhaps because she had been sitting for too long. Her expression was a little uncomfortable. You gave her a considerate look, sent home. On the way home, you passed by the place where the murder of Wei Ji occurred. You asked Fairy Kimura to wait, got out of the car and went to the supermarket to buy 2 bottles of hot drinks. You handed her a bottle and subconsciously raised your head to look at the windowsill full of lilies. Miss Elf was attracted by your gaze and looked there too. His fingertips touched this line of text, and a scene appeared in front of him. 4 Fairy Kimura suddenly counted. After resting for a while, he added, "It's 3 now." Chien Kazuma looked at the windowsill. There were some lilies hanging lonely on the windowsills where the doors and windows were closed. A gust of autumn wind blew by, and I could vaguely see the flower branches swaying and about to fall at any time. There were exactly 3 lilies. "Why are you counting these?" Chien Kazuma said. He vaguely remembered that when he was stabbed here 3 times and 6 times, there were a lot of lilies on the windowsill. A few years ago, when I first arrived in Tokyo, I suddenly had the urge to write a novel, but maybe it was because I had no talent and I had no results for a long time, Miss Goblin said in a low voice, almost in a whisper. Miss Goblin suddenly turned around, and he couldn't see her face clearly due to the light from the store behind her. "You know, at that time I was thinking that when all these uncared for lilies withered, I would probably give up. Let's dream of writing a light novel." Her voice was very soft, a gust of wind blew her hair, and the girl's cold face suddenly bloomed with a flower-like look, and she said softly, "You are the second person to know about this, brother editor. You know that the girl is worried and understand that she is still worried about her future in the industry you choose. Give up now, the game is over. Maybe this is life. What you love is your life. Free simulation. Asaba Kazuma chose. Who hasn't had a dream when they were young? They have all come from that stage, and no one should take it for granted that being young and frivolous is a derogatory term. Give up now, it's game over. You have potential, you just need a little help. Asaba Kazuma understood her talent and knew that her unique writing style was destined to be unique in this field. Now, what she needs is guidance and support from others, not the little comfort of the lily. Kimura Fairy, no, Lily Garcia, bet on my name, Asaba Kazuma, you will definitely become a bright star in the light novel world. Editor, why do you trust me more than myself? Miss Goblin felt helpless. You have to believe in the vision of a light editing manga author, Asaba Kazuma said. You just need to follow me with peace of mind, and I will take care of the rest for you. Including Rina-chan? She's not easy to handle. The elf lady showed a subtle smile. I will communicate with her about this. You contacted Rina-chan, hoping to have an offline interview with her about the details of the replacement of Kimura Fairy. Illustrator Rina-chan declined the offline conversation and said that if you have anything to do, you can talk to her on Twitter backstage. Hello, is the artist Rina-chan herself using this account now? Asaba Kazuma followed this account and sent a private message to Ishihara Rina. As expected, it was close to early in the morning when he saw the message replied by the passerby heroine. Omega, it's me, what's the matter? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 4. Omega, it's me, what's the matter? Ah, this is such a cute K-emoji. On the contrary, it is completely different from the gloomy painting style in the vertical painting. God knows how many times he checked his phone after get off work in order to contact Ishihara Rina. Considering the habit of artists staying up late to work on drafts, he watched the backstage of Little Bluebird almost every minute. Seeing that the simulated heroine was finally online, he immediately launched an offensive. Do you remember Fairy Kimura? She has known you online for many years, and she is full of praise for your painting style. To be honest, the perspective of God that was originally fixed on him suddenly split into two at this moment. A perspective that is still one's own. Another perspective switched to a dark room with tightly drawn curtains. On the big bed on the side near the windowsill, a figure was curled up into a ball, with a vague mess of long hair hanging down beside the bed. On the hangers on the side, there are all loose t-shirts and shirts piled up in a messy manner. Commonly used equipment such as water cups, kettles, and electric water heaters are neatly placed in the corner of the room, probably for easy access at any time. Hearing the beep of the mobile phone, the quilt squirmed, as if it was untied, and slowly stretched out. A palm covered by a long sleeve came out, and followed the sound and groped around. Couldn't reach the phone. So the man finally poked his head out from under the quilt and was about to get up when he bumped into the head of the bed. There was a muffled sound. She instantly crouched down with her head in her arms, her t-shirt, obviously a man's size, hanging disheveled on her body. With this impact, her right shoulder slipped slightly, revealing her slender body bones. She grabbed her phone and climbed out of bed. Suddenly her phone lit up again. The light from the phone dazzled her eyes. Inadvertently, she stubbed her toe again. Another mosquito-like cry. After rolling around on the floor, she reluctantly pulled out a medicine box from under the bed, carefully applied some bruises, and then climbed onto the sofa. Her whole body curled up into a ball, her toes were still curled up uneasily because of the pain, curled up like a wounded animal. She looked at the screen of her phone hesitantly, and stretched out her slender fingers with uneven nails from the edge of her sleeves. He looked at the message with his fingers hesitantly and replied cautiously. "Sigma, isn't as awesome as you said. I also read the novel written by Lily Chan. Hee, it's really interesting." Seeing that Rina Ishihara could barely communicate, he from the left perspective immediately accelerated his offensive. "You are really talented. Among the people I have seen, your painting style and tension are among the best. Oh hey, I won't be happy if you praise me like this." From the right perspective, there was a burst of witch-like laughter in the darkness. She was shaking her head in the chair, her hair swaying, and her voice sounded quiet. It was not so much sinister as, "Like you haven't spoken for a long time." Just when she wanted to reply something, a new message from Asahi Kazuma was sent. "It's like this, Rina-chan, I am the editor of Kimura Fairy, and I plan to invest most of my resources in her in the near future. You also know that the sales of these young novels will be directly affected by the accompanying illustrations. Kimura is not an experienced author with accumulated experience. If she wants to overtake in a corner, she needs to use some extreme means, and you are the trump card I like. I want to help Kimura become a popular author, and you are an indispensable part. My phone number is 070XXXXXX43. If you don't mind, let's call and discuss changing the illustrator. Goose." Ishihara Rina's expression suddenly froze, and she let out a startled cry like a little swan. She tapped the peripheral keyboard, and the computer lit up. On the lock screen was a photo of Asaba Kazuma in real life. On the screen, the mottled light and shadow cast by the shade of the trees gave his cold expression a hazy halo. As she watched, her fingers lightly scratched the screen, and she could vaguely see the blush starting from the collarbone and climbing up. "Ah, so it's you." She looked at the photo of Asayu Kazuma on the screen and patted her face. "I only talk about illustrations online." She sent out such a message, but began to ruffle her fluffy hair again, which seemed to be a little tangled, and her fingers scratched the armrest uneasily. "Ah, forget it, people like me." She tilted her head and put down her phone. Chien Yufazuma looked at her back. Her long hair was scattered on the armrest, and the room was very quiet. Asaba Kazuma shook his head. Such Rina Ishihara looked like a little beast that had shut itself in a small world and withered alone. It was a bit pitiful to have barbs all over its body that kept people away. Before he could feel any more sympathy, subtle breathing sounded. Give me back my self-motivation. Sleep when you encounter difficulties, right? There is no historical record and no willingness to communicate offline. This does not comply with the rules of the library for selecting illustrators, but after you think about it for a moment, you can't refuse such a style of painting, so you take the initiative to talk to your seniors and claim that you have the opportunity to add an annual hit to the library. In the office, your senior will say to you, "You are still young and your performance is good. There is no need to gamble /. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love?" Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. Well, there's not much color in it, it's more of a longing. What makes Asaba Kazuma more confused is where Ishihara Rina got his photo. Looking at my appearance in the photo, I look exactly like myself in reality, as if it was taken recently. And her sour emotions like a little girl. Unrequited love? Simple longing? He remembered that besides being good-looking, there was nothing particularly eye-catching about him before. A bad feeling enveloped my heart. He was basically certain that he had chosen the wrong direction. The moment the senior rejected the option of changing illustrators, the connection he had finally built with Rina Ishihara was about to be wiped out. He decided to go offline first to wash his face and move around to wake up. Looking at himself in the mirror, he seemed to still be able to feel the remaining emotions of Rina Ishihara. He had a feeling that this special state of empathy with the heroine would be of significant use. He lay down and resumed the simulation. What he didn't notice was that as his consciousness rose into the sky, the phone next to him suddenly lit up, and a private message from Little Bluebird popped up on the page. "Dark Tyrannosaurus Warrior, do you know how to submit a light novel?" Sure enough, when I entered the simulation again, the plot started to go crazy. The promised genius of the book has once again become a passerby who barely appears. This wave of simulation, he would like to call it a worker simulator. 3 months have passed, and through the contacts you accumulated during the previous comic adaptation, you have promoted the decision to make the animation of the Dark Elf Doesn't Want to Be Confessed /. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 6. Even if the world ends tomorrow, I still have to go to school on time today. JPG. Well, mainly because the number of simulations is refreshed once a week. He had 5 simulation opportunities a week, and he used them up twice in one night. If he played harder, he might use up all the simulations in one day. So he planned to control the consumption of simulation time sparingly. It sounds weird, but he needs time in reality. Just like the line said at the end of Ready Player One. Reality is the only real thing. Obtaining gains from simulations, absorbing skills such as Russian proficiency in dreams, and accelerating the integration of skills through self-discipline and learning in reality are the most appropriate from both a realistic perspective and a long-term simulation perspective. Choose. After leaving the room, Kinya Kazuma looked at the morning sunshine with a smile on his face. Speaking of which, before time travel, it seemed that he hadn't seen the sun for a while. Girls, what a terrifying creature. Long live peace. Asahi Kazuma, who had not been locked up in a small dark room in this life, suddenly felt that this life was not bad. This quiet and peaceful day began to change a little after getting on the bus. Tokyo is undoubtedly a bustling metropolis, which can even be said to be bustling to the point of being a bit crowded. It took Asaba Kazuma some effort to manage to hide in a corner of the tram, then put on headphones and started listening to some Russian movies. Kazuma's principle 1, effort is not the key factor for success, but it is the factor that can be most easily controlled by oneself. Making rational use of every bit of his fragmented time has been a habit he has developed all along. In line with the mentality of not causing trouble for others, but not for himself, he huddled in the corner and watched the movie quietly. It takes 21–25 minutes to drive to the school, and he has enough time to watch the first part of the movie. But things went wrong. As the tram moved, the flow of people on the car changed, and when it reached a stop, it suddenly braked. It was okay for him who was leaning on the corner and had support, but the people without handrails next to him were in misery. The center of gravity was unstable, and the car was shaking. He only had time to smell the scent of fresh shampoo, and then his phone was knocked away. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and reached out to grab the flying mobile phone. Only then did he realize awkwardly that a girl who didn't know when she came to his side was squeezed by the surrounding crowd and fell into his arms. As the vehicle shook again, he could vaguely feel a warm and shaking touch in front of him. An ordinary student would not dare to raise his head to see what the other person looks like at this time. But Asahi Kazuma raised her head without scruple, showed an apologetic smile, raised her hands to prove her innocence, moved her body closer to the corner, and tried hard to use her hands to give the girl some space. It's hot in Tokyo, but Asaba's wind calms her down and makes her feel cool. He wasn't worried about whether the girl would accuse him of secretly filming him. After all, if it doesn't work, just turn on the version Answer Samurai Showdown. But he still felt a sense of guilt in his heart. After all, it was really. The feeling is quite subtle. Before he could take any further notice, the crowd coming up from behind forced the girl closer to him, and it was useless for Kinha Kazuma to block it with his hands. The two bodies were pressed tightly together, and Asahi Kazuma could feel that the girl's body was being pressed so that she could not move. He could feel the body of the girl in his arms shaking. She seemed to be trying to get out, but was squeezed in by the people behind her. Her body quickly became stiff, and a low hum that could only be heard clearly by him being so close reached his ears. He could clearly see that the roots of her ears were starting to turn red. This cannot go on. Kinha Kazuma gritted his teeth. His young body couldn't bear this, let alone his more mature mind. So he lowered his head slightly, said sorry in the girl's ear, carefully pulled the two bodies away from each other by a small distance, and then flipped the girl to the corner where he was. Between her sharp lips and teeth, she made a sound of approval that would definitely be misunderstood by others. Qian Yufengjian felt that his thinking was paused. There were people around him who looked at him with envy and jealousy. It was only then that he had time to look at the appearance of this ostracized girl. She was a literature girl with a cold expression and eyes as clear as a clear spring. She was wearing the uniform of the same school as herself. He glanced at the student ID card she wore on her chest. Hakuin High School third-year student. Name, Shiana Uman. Sure enough, is she a senior from the same school? Sensing Asaba Kazuma's gaze, Shiana Kian nodded calmly. Only the reddish ear tips revealed that what just happened was not an illusion. Thank you, she said softly. Qian Yufengjian's high-raised heart was slightly lowered. Although he didn't do it intentionally, he did take advantage of it. Now that the senior student has not pursued the case, that's the best thing. He always felt as if he had overlooked something. He endured the awkward and ambiguous atmosphere. After calming down his impulse, he began to support the corner with one hand, trying to avoid getting closer to the senior sister. The two of them maintained a small safe space in a tacit understanding, and they got off the bus in silence until they reached the school platform. Seemingly sensing his struggle not to say sorry, Shiana Kane smiled gracefully and spoke first. Sophomore, I just bothered you in the car. Kinha Kazuma nodded calmly. He's not crazy enough to think it's fun to play like this in the car. He didn't stop and walk straight into the gate of Bian High School. I don't know if it was an illusion, but Asaba Kazuma always felt that Shiana Yuin was walking in front of him. When his eyes passed over her tight and powerful legs, something strange happened. Just like under the morning sunlight, the morning branches are covered with refracted white frost. The two of them passed each other like this. If he turned back at this time, he would find that the smiling smile on Shianakian's face had disappeared, replaced by a drunken state of obsession. The eyes on that fair face were blurry, with an abnormal halo appearing vaguely. "Junior Kazuma, thank you for your hospitality." But he had already put on indoor shoes and entered the teaching building. The morning's class went by in a blink of an eye. All I can say is that Bian High School really has strong teachers. Unlike many Heisei abandoned houses created by Happy Education, Heikuin High School is a strong school in Tokyo famous for its high deviation value. Those teaching contents that are too simple to bear to look at in anime will not be performed in this school. It can only be said that it is indeed a strong school famous for its advancement. A genius like him who has excellent results in the lower cities and counties does not seem to be that strong in such a strong school. The teacher on the stage couldn't help but smile happily after discovering Asaba Kazuma's arrival in the classroom, but when he glanced at the whole class, his eyes became a little sharper. Those who have been slacking off recently should get back into shape. Next week's exam will be more difficult than usual. Especially those of you members of the sports club. I remember that some of you failed the exam last time. Don't forget why you came to Heikuin High School. If your grades are not satisfactory, I will contact your parents. There was a lot of wailing in the audience. After class at noon, he was about to try the fried noodles bread that he had only heard about but never tasted, but he was stopped by his homeroom teacher Haruna Hayakawa. "Asian you, please come to the office later. I have something I want to talk to you about." Asaba Kazuma nodded in agreement. He went to the canteen and bought some fried noodles bread. After taking a few bites, he confirmed again that this kind of food did not suit his taste. On the way to the office, he went to the bathroom. When he was about to leave, he suddenly heard students talking outside the door. "Ah, have you heard about that? What's up? That's Mr. Nishino from the next class. Didn't you hear the gossip? Ah, you are talking about the female teacher in the next class with a dangerous hairstyle. She seems to teach English, right? What happened? I heard from my senior that the teacher's reputation in private is not very good. Isn't it possible? I heard from my friend that Mr. Nishino is very good in class and he is gentle to others, right? It's not the kind I'm talking about, it's the kind that comes from teachers and students, unclean, hee. I don't know who the lucky one is. Hey, is it true? Teacher Nishino is quite beautiful. I can do it, ma'am." Asayu Kazuma stopped in place in shock. After coming out of the bathroom, he washed his face and left the scene. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Huasiang. Chapter 7. After arriving at the office, he met Mr. Hayakawa. "Asahi-san, please sit down first when you come." Mr. Hayakawa, who had just finished his lunch, patted the chair. Kinya Kazuma sat up obediently and said, "Teacher, what's the matter?" "Asian you, how is your recovery?" she asked gently. "It's almost recovered. I'm sorry for causing you any trouble. You are a smart kid, but unfortunately your health is a bit poor. If you could attend classes normally like other students, your grades would be better. Do you have any thoughts on this? Sign up for a cram school?" "But I don't have much money on hand, Mr. Hayakawa." Hayakawa Haruna hesitated for a moment and said, "I took a look and found that your weakest subjects are English and science. If you can't sign up for a cram school, I can give you some guidance after class for science. For English, you worked hard on your own." Qian Yufengjian was a little surprised. Teacher Hayakawa smiled and said, "Isn't it weird? There are all handsome men and beautiful women in life, so that's very eye-catching. Isn't this an inappropriate sentence for a teacher to say? No one hates good-looking people, right? It's really good for the eyes. I feel my eyesight has improved. Only this must be an illusion, Kazuma said helplessly. Anyway, I'll leave it to you, teacher, to trouble you about this matter. There was no reason not to accept the snacks delivered to his door, and he didn't want to live up to Mr. Hayakawa's kindness. Of course, the snacks he mentioned were the guidance, not Hayakawa Haruna. Just when his thoughts were a little scattered, he suddenly heard a soft voice coming from the desk next to him. If you need English tutoring, I can help. A soft voice came from the desk next to him. It was a female teacher wearing a women's suit top and hip-hugging skirt. She pushed the end of her hair behind her ears, revealing her face with a black mole. Teacher Nishino, are you willing to help? Hayakawa Haruna's eyes lit up. Nishino. Contrary to Hayakawa Haruna's behavior, Asaba Kazuma raised his eyebrows. Isn't this something that has been briefly mentioned in dating simulations? He was silent for a moment, his heart beating faster. This love simulation is so realistic. He barely suppressed his emotions, raised his head and said obediently, "Thank you, Mr. Nishino, for your help, but I may not need it for the time being in terms of foreign languages." Huh, the female teacher looked a little surprised. Didn't you say that your English is not very good? English is indeed like this, but the foreign language test does not only take English, right? Asaba Kazuma turned to look at Hayakawa Haruna and said with a smile, "Mr. Hayakawa, actually I am still a little confident in Chinese." Yes, the foreign language subject of the Japanese college entrance examination requires you to choose one of English, Chinese, French, Korean, and German. When he realized this problem, he already understood that he had actually passed the foreign language subject. As for having an immediate date with a female teacher, in reality, this is going to throw away the university dormitory where he was both a bitch and a sea king in his previous life. Comrade Neptune will definitely shout, "Other people's wives, how exciting!" He has no interest in destroying other people's families. School is over in the afternoon. Asaba Kazuma specifically did not choose to take the train back, but took a leisurely shortcut home. As expected, he saw a construction site where construction had just begun. Opposite the construction site was an outdoor supplies store. Is this love simulator more powerful than I thought? He originally wanted to buy a trekking pole directly, but then he thought about it, looked at the store owner and said, "Is there a folding and telescopic multifunctional trekking pole? I am very confident about the product types in our store." Back home, Asaba Kazuma took out the small accessories of the multifunctional folding trekking pole from the storage bag. Tungsten steel staff tip, multifunctional knife, harpoon, icebreaker. He suddenly felt safe. I'm going to go hiking. Is it okay to equip my hiking poles with a few extra sets of outdoor tips? Putting the storage bag of trekking poles next to the bed, he fell asleep with a sense of security. It would take him an afternoon and night to absorb all the remaining memories of Russian proficiency in his sleep. It will take another 2 days to fully absorb, assuming a normal sleep schedule. Asaba Kazuma chose to double her sleep time. Suck early and enjoy early. Location, Hakuin High School. Time, 1400 hours p.m. the next day. After finishing the first class, Asaba Kazuma went to the teacher's office. Teacher Hayakawa seems to have arranged a tutoring schedule for him. Normally, he should go there after the second class in the afternoon, but today he had something very important to verify, so he came to the office one class early. Don't you have classes later? Why are you coming here now? Teacher, I have to take a leave from the next class. I need to go to the hospital for a review. Oh, the monthly one, right. Yes, so come here early today, take away the tutoring schedule you arranged, and prepare in advance. This is a lie. Asaba Kazuma did make an appointment with the hospital for a review today, but she could wait until after school. He was going to test a guest today. Although Mr. Nishino after class, the construction site and the outdoor goods store on the way home have all indicated that the love simulation is likely to be a simulation of the future based on his current situation. But some things ultimately need to be verified with your own eyes. He wants to see the crime scene where his blood was stolen. As for the so-called gentleman who doesn't stand behind dangerous walls, under normal circumstances, the most he can do is call the police and watch from afar. But he had plenty of further validation. The rewards of dating simulation are very important, but if the simulation can really predict the future, then his strategy for Goldfinger will have to change slightly. I agree to the leave, but you must be mentally prepared first. The tutoring schedule I have arranged for you is not low intensity. After hearing what Hayakawa Haruna said, Asaba Kazuma paused and said with a smile. Teacher, don't you ask a few more questions? No need. Hayakawa Haruna shook her head. If I want you to lie to me, then there must be something more important than class, such as the moon outside the building or the moon tonight. Chienyu Kazuma nodded. There is indeed something that has to be done. Then go ahead and agree first that you should take a good look at the tutoring plan I have prepared for you. No problem. With the support of Haruna Hayakawa, Asaba Kazuma left school early. It is now 14:32. He had enough time to rush to the scene of the simulated crime where he had been involved in an accident. Of course, there is one more important thing now. After leaving the school with the leave note given by Mr. Hayakawa, he took out the trekking poles from his backpack, assembled them, and unfolded the panels. Click Achievements Store, select Function Temporary Events, and click to purchase. Achievement points -1. Ding, you purchased the temporary event function once, and the task is refreshed. Temporary event: the unknown girl will witness the gangsters clashing with the small supermarket opposite her home, causing a tragedy. Click here to locate the coordinates. Activity content: prevent gangsters from escaping and become a partner of justice. Activity time: before 15:22 tomorrow. Activity restrictions: if multiple people take action, or the alarm time is earlier than 1500 hours, the activity rewards will be reduced. Activity reward: physical strength add 1, genetic adjustment and neural reflex enhancement, single player reward. The corners of Jianyu Fengjian's mouth raised slightly. The first experiment was successful. He thought he would need to spend a few more achievement points to explore the mechanism of temporary activities. But now it seems that this game can indeed control the content of temporary activities based on the time nodes of future events deduced by simulation. Become a slave to Goldfinger? Are you kidding me? System, your capitalist grandpa is here, come and use the surplus value. We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 8. Asahi Kazuma sorted out her thoughts. The location coordinates of the event happened to be the small supermarket on the shortcut to his home. It is certain that this temporary event is aimed at the tragic incident in the love simulation that caused him to be stabbed 3 times and 6 times. But to be honest, he is just a gangster with a knife after all, and he is not that dangerous if he is prepared. This is probably why temporary events have to limit the number of people and alarm times. Because there are no restrictions, it is not difficult to complete at all. As for calling someone or calling the police in advance, impossible. I'm greedy for event rewards, I'm honest. Needless to say, physical strength add 1. His body is already weak and requires a lot of physical strength. And that adjusting genes and strengthening nerve reflexes, he felt there would be an unexpected surprise. Self-defense equipment is also prepared, and using trekking poles makes it easier to explain to the police afterwards, so there will be basically no further trouble. When he adds a multifunctional tungsten steel knife to the head of the stick, he doesn't believe that this gangster can still use the blade catching with empty hands skill. There is no reason why he should be afraid to act even though he has a golden finger and the future situation has been previewed. On the way, he went to the construction site as usual, packed the lime in a bag, and then went directly to the small supermarket, quietly hid in a corner where no one would notice, and quietly waited for the man's arrival. Soon, as the traffic lights on the surrounding streets turned on, and a black van passed by, Asahikazuma saw a middle-aged man wearing a black sweatshirt walking towards the small supermarket. He quietly assembled the trekking poles, put them in the express box he had specially prepared, and then entered it. As soon as he entered the supermarket, he shouted eagerly to the female cashier at the door, "Sister Lily, at least you didn't get off work early today. You promised to have dinner with me, but you kept breaking the appointment." Then Kazuma looked at the young man in the black sweater with some curiosity. Seeing that he was a little close to the grandmother and her daughter, he frowned slightly, with an unhappy look on his face, and pointed at the man and said, "Sister Lily, who is he? You said you were busy today just to go out with him. Do you not like me anymore?" Before the female cashier had time to speak, the gangster in the black sweater scratched his neck anxiously and cursed. "Where did you come from, you brat? I have something to do with Lily today. Come quickly and don't delay our business." The gangster moved and leaned forward a little. For a moment, Asahikazuma felt that her heartbeat was about to stop. But in fact, he was too careful. Even at this moment, the gangster didn't think much about it. This gangster came to the supermarket on a temporary basis to prevent the old lady and daughter from being threatened by him, but he really didn't doubt Asahikazuma. A boy who looks like fragile porcelain, who is a good student in school, can change the world. He was being driven crazy, but not so paranoid. So he pulled the brim of his sweatshirt, put a little force on the knife behind the female cashier's back, hinting her to shut up, and followed Asahikazuma's words and said, "You're too young, kid. Older women won't let you do this." Kazuma took a half step forward unhappily. "Sister Lily, is what he said true? I want to hear you give me an explanation in person. Obviously you praised me for being great last week." As he spoke, he approached the gangster. When the gangster saw this, he subconsciously looked at the female cashier, as if he didn't expect that she actually liked the idea of a kid driving a big car. At this moment, the cashier who had been being held hostage seized the opportunity, bumped into the man in the sweatshirt, tried to push him away and ran out of the checkout counter. Court death. The gangster discovered her intention and immediately shouted and pulled his clothes. Asahikazuma has been observing for a long time, and of course he will not miss this opportunity. He grabbed the long and narrow express box in his hand, turned around and hit the gangster directly on the head. However, the gangster's reaction was unexpectedly fast. He struck last and came first. He actually had time to raise his hand to block the express box, and was only beaten once. Staggering. Seeing the old lady and her daughter running out of the checkout counter, the gangster realized that the incident had been exposed, grabbed the knife in his hand, and pounced on the two. Asahikazuma did not hesitate to grab a bag from the box on the soft couch and threw it towards him. The gangster subconsciously slashed at the bag, and the splash of lime instantly made him close his eyes. How could he not know at this time that this kid was waiting for him on purpose? "You kid, you're plotting against me." As soon as he cursed, Asahikazuma's hiking pole fell instantly. The stick hit him until blood burst out, and his nose was crooked on one side, but it was like opening a soy sauce shop, with salty, sour, and spicy all coming out. He fell flat on the ground and could not get up again. "Old guy, you've got gold coins." He didn't fight back anymore. He had already heard the sound of police cars outside. Yes, temporary activities restricted him from calling the police before 1500 hours, so he had already notified the police at 1501. Seeing that the police were about to come, He took off the head of the hiking pole and put it back in his storage bag. When he took action in the simulation, the two of them were already lying in a pool of blood. But now, although the old lady and the two were in shock, they were not injured. It's not that he really has any sentimentality like a rabbit dying and a fox grieving for its own kind. It's not that the temporary activity requires him to save people, the activity only requires him to prevent the gangsters from escaping. It's not like he was sad about the death of a rabbit or a fox. He had no feelings for these two people. It's just that he chose to save people. Similar to the experience in the love simulation, the police who came after hearing the news praised him severely after an investigation. After the old ladies thanked him and the police left, Asahi Kazuma raised his head and looked at the house opposite. "What are you looking at, Brother Kazuma?" The female cashier looked at the handsome young man, remembering what the young man had said before. She glanced at her old mother who was still resting at the checkout counter, and suddenly lowered her voice and said, "I can do it tonight. Sister, you are so easy to tease. I am very clean and self-sufficient. This kind of a stringent thing is not allowed." Kinyo Kazuma showed a smile like a little fox, and subconsciously looked at his house where lilies were blooming, and suddenly found that the curtains on the windowsill full of lilies had opened a gap. As his gaze swept across, the gap closed again, leaving only the curtains and flowers swaying together. He looked down at the plaque at the entrance to the courtyard. The light spots cast in the shade of the trees in the courtyard hit the plaque, and 3 large characters were engraved on it. Ishihara family. He turned his head and showed a dazzling smile to the cashier girl. "So, big sister, no, I already have a new toy." After saying that, he turned and left under the disappointed look of the cashier girl. "Ishihara Rina, I caught you. We've traveled through Tokyo. Who still wants to simulate love?" Author, Fei Se Huasiang. Chapter 9. Back in the room, Asahi Kazuma sat on a chair and sorted out today's situation. After verification, this game is indeed simulated based on reality. Now, things get interesting. This love simulator, if used properly, is a variant of future prediction. As for using the results of love simulation to fall in love in reality, don't even talk about dogs. Ever since his college roommate fell in love in his previous life, he lived like a dog. He borrowed money from his brothers every day. Even after graduation, he got engaged and was defrauded of 300,000 yuan in gift money by his ex. He went to court. He decided not to get married easily. Wouldn't it be better to worship the electronic moon elder, have a cyber love affair, and enjoy the joy of predicting the future while having nothing to do? Let the beautiful secretary lick his feet when you have nothing to do. The premise of all this is that he can handle Ishihara Rina. The content of the love simulation is closely related to the simulated heroine. Only by finding a way to open the channel through Rina's mind can he obtain more future information, acquire more talents and skills, and have a chance to stand out in Japan's almost solid society. He rubbed his brows and glanced at the laptop that was not closed. This morning before school, he went to the anonymous bulletin board 2ch to make a provocation. As a Japanese forum, 2ch's style can be directly compared to Weibo, Xiaohongshu, and Taiba, and it can be simply understood as a Japanese toilet. Normally, he would stay away from such a violent social platform. Except for one situation. He wants to fish. He accidentally pulled out his golden finger Kunyulu, Love is War 2077. At that time, he had just traveled through time and wanted to find an SLG game to relax, but he didn't want to waste time filtering games, so he posted a fishing post on 2ch. The SLG game has no plot and no connotation. The female protagonist has no character design that can be praised except for the standing drawings. If you don't agree, let me argue. This fish fry, as expected, brought out a lot of fun people and a lot of weird people. Among them, the argument used by this group of people to criticize them most was Kunyulu, which was just released 1 month ago. At that time, he went directly to Steam to inspect the goods. After confirming that the game was very good, he chose to buy and download it. Niken wondered what went wrong. The PC game Kunula failed to download successfully, but Kunula, Love is War 2077 was loaded in his mind. At that time, I only collected some information in a hurry and started to develop cheats. He was busy going out this morning, and thinking of using the ideas of the grumpy old man, he repeated his old trick and sent another message. What kind of garbage game is this, Kunula? Why, after choosing the heroine, the main plot is basically the stories of other characters. Is there a way to develop a passerby heroine? If you don't know how to make games, don't do it. This Kun Jade record is obviously the prototype of his golden finger. He suspects that the gameplay mechanism of the love simulation may be related to Kun Jade record. No, when he returned home after dealing with the gangsters, he received a severe reward from his grumpy old buddy. I just want to play a garbage game of mindlessly pushing women. You know what a SLG is? After selecting a single female protagonist, the remaining female protagonists will become love assists. This is the characteristic of Kunula. There is no just go to Google. Chienu Kazuma frowned slightly after looking at it. No wonder he always felt that the lost golden retriever was about to be unlocked in Ishihara simulation line. I get it, it's a sneaky cat trying to use his body to assist, right? Following this brother's train of thought, Kinyu Fengjian suddenly had an idea. Does that mean the goblin might hide the key to contact Ishihara? He thought for a moment, then opened the game panel, and first extracted the physical strength add 1 reward. Kunyu, let me see your limits. The next moment, he felt that his whole person was different. It takes hundreds of thousands of years for a species to evolve to be significantly different from its close relatives. However, Qian Yufengjian's frail body is like a diseased body that requires years of warming to recover from its origin. In a short moment, it has crossed the time, instantly transformed into an extremely healthy body. When he came away from the warm feeling soaked in the spring water, he could clearly feel that his body was relaxed as never before, and the previously undetectable feeling of weakness completely disappeared. What's even more strange is that he always feels that the disharmony between his soul and body seems to be erased at this moment. Just like, it's as if as my body grows, my soul adapts to my body. Has Asaba Kazuma completely transformed into my shape? He looked at adjusting genes and strengthening nerve reflexes again. A tingling sensation came up, but it quickly faded. Kinyu Kazuma vaguely felt that something had changed in him. Let's go to school tomorrow and give it a try. What he has to do now is to complete the small goals of the simulation, for example. Open up the inner channel of the fairy lady. Fairy, I've realized it, and I want you to help me practice, referring to strategy. Anyway, this is a simulator, no one will die, and there is no need to be as cautious as in reality. Why should he restrict himself so much? Asaba Kazuma lay on the bed again and started the next round of simulation. At the same time, some people are unpredictable. Location, in a small bungalow in Tokyo. Seeing the unanswered message on Twitter, the girl put down her phone irritably. She had just woken up and murmured something inaudible but obviously not in Japanese. Her long golden hair fell down next to her mobile phone, revealing the message she had sent privately backstage at Little Bluebird the day before. She checked the backstage again and still received no reply to her message asking netizens how to submit light novels. Oh, forget it, let's sleep a little longer. I hope I can have a good dream like yesterday. The girl fell into sleep. The third simulation begins. The opening node changed directly. The time came this afternoon. After a brave act of justice, you finally locked the location of your target, Ishihara, 2 years in advance. System prompt, you have unlocked the achievement Bravely Acting 2/5, achievement point add 1, repeatable. With the experience of the previous simulations, you know that the heroine is extremely wary of outsiders, and there is no way to bring her out using ordinary methods. Fortunately, you know that Kimura Fairy is very comfortable to use. You decide first attack her. You were on the local news because of your handsome appearance and brave behavior. You became popular on Twitter. A TikTok anchor from the same school came to you to shoot a video. You rejected him and was greeted by him in a low voice. Abuse. He claims to make you pay the price. You choose. Of course I choose to forgive him. Organize it, you must organize it ruthlessly. Repay 10 times, repay 100 times, repay 1,000 times. Free simulation. Asaba Kazuma. It shows. It's all simulated, so what makes him have to be cautious when dreaming? As memories flow in, the scene unfolds. It was already evening, and the afterglow of the setting sun shone on the late dusk land. The setting sun stretched the shadow of Qian Yufengjian very long. He walked towards a yellow-haired young man step by step. In the afterglow of the setting sun, the yellow-haired student who wanted to coerce Kinyo Kazuma to shoot a video together couldn't see his face clearly. The yellow-haired student suddenly felt the danger and subconsciously wanted to fight back. Asaba Kazuma had some impression of him, as if he was a sports student in the tennis club. Normally, it would be impossible for his weak body to defeat such a person. But at the moment Huang Mao punched, his nervous reaction seemed to be activated instantly. He struck first and kicked Huang Mao on the calf. He grabbed his hand with his backhand and pinned the man down easily. On the ground, Huang Mao suddenly felt pain, and his face stained with dust raised his head in fear. "The shoes are all covered with dust," he said lightly. Huang Mao lowered his head in a low voice, subconsciously avoiding Qianyu Kazuma's gaze, as if there was a lion hiding in his eyes. So he held up his wallet with both hands, hoping that Qianba Kazuma would accept his apology. "You're not good with your forehand, and you're weak with your backhand. Are you trying to bluff people like this?" Qianyu Fengjian said calmly. System prompt: you have unlocked the achievement Xiao Longman, achievement point add 1. You have lived a peaceful life affected by your Chinese proficiency skills. You do not need to invest more time in foreign language subjects. After receiving the guidance of teacher Hayakawa, you have rapidly improved your academic ability. After investing a lot of effort, you passed the exam. Kyoto University Faculty of Literature. Wuhu and Kyoto University started. Although they were slightly inferior to Tokyo University, which ranked first, they were far ahead of other schools in Japan. Moreover, the deviation value required by the Faculty of Letters ranks relatively high among Kyoto University's faculties, and is not that far from the requirements for the worst major at Tokyo University. His learning talent is better than he thought. He continued to read. You tried knocking on Ishihara's door many times, but no one responded. This life lasted for more than a year in the blink of an eye. Asaba Kazuma secretly thought, this Ishihara can really endure it? The most beautiful boy in the world is standing in front of her house, and she can still resist the temptation. But it doesn't matter, you are more patient than she is. You know that you will stand out faster in this life before the graduation season in college. You drew on the currently popular Nikkei theme and combined it with the cool points of Xiaoguo's online articles to publish a reincarnated succubus in Denjiki Bunko. Did I do something wrong? This time, you have exceeded the upper limit of otherworld toilet paper themes. Before you even entered Kyoto University, your novel has been animated. Some people in the industry wanted to ridicule you for making gold-plated toilet paper, but when they learned that you were admitted to the Faculty of Literature of Kyoto University, thinking about your alumni and seniors, the industry quietly changed its tone. You became famous at a young age. While you were still a student in the Department of Literature of a prestigious school, the reputation of your works has bucked the trend. Your character, the cute king, Kyle D. Heloy, has accurately hit the XP of specific groups with her unpredictable appearance of both men and women. As the sales of animated BDS further increased, Your famous work completely broke off the toilet paper list and entered the forefront of the year's most popular works. The figures sold well, and you also made a lot of money, but you know very well that a work has exhausted your energy, and if you try it again, your underpants will be exposed. System prompt: you have unlocked a popular masterpiece, achievement points add 1. In the same year, you used this experience as a springboard to become an official editor of Dengeki Bunko. Today is the first day of your probation period. Next, you decide. Let me sleep for 3 more. Arrive at the company half an hour early to understand the environment. If you arrive at the company 1 minute early, I lose. Free simulation. Coming. Asaba Kazuma became nervous. He had already thought about it before. According to his inference, the most important thing if he wanted to really get close to Ishihara was to get a handle on Kimura Ferry, the future popular author. He needs to tie himself to Lily Garcia more deeply, and what kind of situation can make the two of them deeply tied? A playful smile appeared on his face. Select Let Me Sleep for 3 more. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. We've traveled through Tokyo. Who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 10. Let me sleep for another 3 hours. You wanted to say this, but in fact you only got up after sleeping for an hour. I realize you haven't arrived today, and a worried senior wakes you up with a phone call. Senior, Qian Yufengjian whispered. Qian, have you forgotten that today is your first day on the job? The voice on the other end of the phone was a little dull. Sorry, Senior, I was too excited last night when I thought about officially joining the company. I took a bath for a long time. Asahi Kazuma suddenly sneezed. In his previous life, he worked in a company that followed the 007 work system. He wanted to. This is the only way to rest. You answered the phone pretending to be weak and told your senior that you were so excited last night that you caught a cold for a while. Senior asks you if you want to take leave today. You reluctantly tell him that this is your first job. I'm sorry that you didn't arrive in time. Please give me a moment, Senior. This is a lie? Asahi Kazuma smiled. It was just as he expected. He knows very well that for the main operating department of an industry leader, the work intensity is so intense that it requires a dedicated work log to be completed one by one. Therefore, he boldly predicted that during the hour he was late, a considerable part of the important work that originally belonged to him had most likely been reassigned to various editors. And this is what he wants to achieve, because Kimura Ferry, who is still on the street at this time, will definitely not be on this important and urgent list. The adult world is very cruel. I used a hairdryer to blow my lips into chapped spots, pursed my lips, and came to the company looking at your thin body and weak expression. The senior suppressed the blame he originally wanted to say, and he quietly handed it to you. Can you take care of yourself first, and then think about work? The senior, who was as strong as a bear, patted him on the shoulder and handed him a box of medicine. I just asked my colleague who came back from urging me to bring it for you. You should do some light work today. You got the forgiveness of your senior, and he began to give you the remaining list of less important authors. Can you? This is the list of the remaining authors who have not yet been contacted. Don't worry, they have not done well, so there is no pressure to be contacted. Senior Seong said in a gentle tone what was very heartbreaking for these authors. Asaba Kazuma nodded. This was exactly what he needed. In a high-intensity company like this, new employees are usually assigned a training plan when they enter the company. The authors he takes over are usually the ones brought in by the previous editor who left. It is common knowledge in the industry that those who have resigned and run away either have poor performance and cannot survive, or they have taken the author with them to their next job. In his case it was clearly the former. In other words, he was just a bunch of sluggers, and because he arrived late, the stronger authors had been given priority to other editors to help deal with it. The rest are mostly top-notch pure players like Kimura or newcomers. But this suited him just fine. That afternoon, Asaba Kazuma, who had already connected with the author under his command, was stayed by Senior Seong after get off work. "Chien-yu, you are in a bit of trouble right now. I looked at the work handover contents compiled by several other editors and found that the quality of the authors you have is not very good." The senior tried his best to use less offensive words and said helplessly, "Don't blame them. Everyone in modern companies has performance pressure. It's not that easy for good authors to be transferred to them to get back to you. In this way, I will chat with several middle-tier authors under me, and you will be responsible for their docking work when the time comes." Hearing this, Chien Yufengjian raised his head and showed a bright smile. "No, senior, let me try it myself first." "You sure?" "I am convinced that I am still young and have the opportunity to try and make mistakes." Senior looked at your firm gaze and nodded. He felt that you were going to make a big mistake, which he didn't want to see. "The plan goes through." Feeling the memories flowing into his mind, Asaba Kazuma smiled from the bottom of his heart. Frustration. No, 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 this is the result he wants. You quickly found the fairy among a group of street riders. You know that she is an unexplored green fruit, waiting for someone to dye her red and reveal her ripe fragrance. The next day is approaching. After get off work, she who was invited to the office by you came as promised. Asaba Kazuma stood up and left the workstation, and suddenly found Fairy Kimura sitting lazily on the sofa in the corner of the office, as if she had been waiting for a while. "Chien-yu Kazuma, your editor, just call me Chien-yu, I'm not much older than you." He sat opposite her. "What's the matter with coming to me, editor Asaha?" Kimura raised her head slightly. She was always taciturn and went straight to the point. "It's very important. The book you have in hand right now may be cut in half." He saw her body trembling. "Oh," the girl said softly, "then I will take some time to complete the ending of this book." Kinya Kazuma paused and said seriously, "Among the authors under me, there are basically no more popular works, so I plan to fully guide a group of authors who I think are talented. I may even find a few suitable illustrators specifically for your writing style and content. Accelerate your sales. Even if I am a new editor, I still need KPIs." "What do you mean?" Fairy Kimura was a little surprised. "Well, I'm going to bring a new group of people from scratch. I think you are quite talented and I want you to be the first one to test the waters." The tone of the conversation didn't seem like that of an editor or author. There was no sense of being suppressed, more like peers. Fairy Kimura's tense nerves relaxed slightly, and she felt that the person in front of her was much more pleasing to the eye. "I understand, and I will fully cooperate. If there is an illustrator that you think is good, please recommend it. If the illustrator hadn't been so bad in your last book, you wouldn't have gotten such a bad grade." Kimura Fairy has begun to devote herself to the creation of a new book. She tells you that she has a very good friend who said that she will continue to support her new book. She suddenly feels confident. You suspect that your friend is the Ishihara you have been looking for, and warn the goblin not to raise a flag. You start to combine your experience and lessons, as well as the relevant data analysis in the background of the library, to preach and gain karma for Kimura Fairy. Half a month has passed. Fairy Kimura has unlocked many light novel tricks under your careful guidance, and she is impressed by you. A month and a half later, with your company, Kimura Goblin's new book Dark Elves Don't Want to Be Confessed Volume 1 was submitted and approved. With your assistance you found an online book artist to be the illustrator of Goblin's new book, and worked throughout the entire process. Supervisor, do you have a feeling that the new book will explode this time? Kimura Fairy thought about what you said before about recommending illustrators, and instinctively thought of her friend Rina-chan, but now she has no grades in her book, and editor Asaba needs results, so she is not embarrassed to recommend Rina-chan to you. But when you returned to the company that day, it was clear that your situation was already very dangerous. As you passed by the door of the editor-in-chief's office, you suddenly heard your name you chose. Open the door to peek. Put your ear close to eavesdrop. The current crime of breaking into the editor-in-chief's office. Free simulation. Should this option be said to be a small life? Select close your ear to eavesdrop. The scene unfolded, and Kinyo Kazuma, who was leaning against the door, heard a burst of curses. Tamura Yuzuki, did I come to you to make you eat? We've traveled through Tokyo, who still wants to simulate love? Author, Fei Se Hui-Xiang. Chapter 11. Tamura Yuzuki, did I come to you to make you eat? As the memory unfolded, what Jian Yufeng Jian heard was a curse with strong dissatisfaction, and he frowned subconsciously. This voice is the editor-in-chief of the library? Before he could think about it, the editor-in-chief's voice came from the door again. It was you who said that our library needs to inject high-quality new blood. It was you who told me that Asaba Kazuma has unique insights into controlling the trend of light novels. That's why I made an exception and allowed a kid who just went to college to join our editorial department. Now what do you think this is? It has been a month and a half, and his light novel indicators are less than half of the average, so he is worthy of being called a student of Kyoto University. His performance is not impressive at all. As the senior who leads him, shouldn't you guide him well and do what he should do? There was a burst of angry curses at the door of the editor-in-chief's office. Asahi Kazuma stopped and stood outside the office. Even through the door, he could feel the terrifying pressure coming from inside the door. That was the editor-in-chief's uncontrollable curse. Then, a senior, or Tamura Yuzuki's dull voice sounded inside. But editor-in-chief, Kinyu has worked very hard. Can we make money by just working hard? There are so many people who are willing to work hard, why don't we see them making big money? At that time, I saw that he had experience in light editing comics at a young age, was still a student at the Faculty of Liberal Arts of Kyoto University, and could be a bit gimmick to the outside world, so I chose him specifically. I don't ask him to be very good, but he must at least leave some traces of his existence in this industry. This was followed by another burst of cathartic swearing. Seeing Yuzuki Tamura walking out of the editor-in-chief's room, Asaba Kazuma, who was standing by the door, was about to say something when the senior came over, patted him on the shoulder and said, "Don't take it to heart. The editor-in-chief is also a little anxious. In fact, with the author resources you have now, if you leave them in my hands, you may not be able to do your best. Light novels are not the same. In 10 days and a half, the performance industries with significant efficiency gains will emerge. This is not your problem. I will block things for you that you shouldn't have to carry." Kinyo Kazuma nodded, indicating that he didn't care about it. Because he knows very well that the resources he has on hand now are so poor. Fishing out gold from the street is not an easy task. The editor-in-chief is very dissatisfied with your KPI. Although Yuzuki Tamura tried to help you, you know that this will not last long, so you choose. Please ask your seniors to help you get the right to freely choose an illustrator for once. You want to study Kimura Fairy. Accept the help of seniors and obtain the docking rights of some high-quality authors. Hire a gangster to beat up the chief editor. Free simulation. Jian Yufeng Jian pondered. The option is probably to bet on Tamura Yuzuki's trust in him and put all his performance on Kimura Fairy. As expected, Kimura Fairy and Ishihara join forces to make this book extremely popular, and he will also successfully get the opportunity to further communicate with Ishihara. Option, he can't be so shameless yet. The options are endless. Teacher Zhang-san would shout, "You are breaking the law," when he saw it. There is no choice at all. Kinyo Kazuma sighed. Select hire a gangster to beat up the editor-in-chief. How could he choose option? During the second simulation, the senior had clearly said, "You are still young and your performance is good. There is no need to gamble." From this perspective, option 1 is obviously a dilemma that he artificially created by himself, forcing his seniors to help him get the privilege of selecting a specific illustrator, and even being able to have further contact with Ishihara Rina earlier. But this option may hide a huge trap, that is, in the second simulation, after Rina Ishihara came into contact with him, she stopped further communication, and ultimately ended without any problem. Simply solving the obstacle of seniors is not enough. The core problem of Ishihara Rina refuses to go further is still not solved. So he chooses. You might be able to get some useful information faster by using crooked methods. You raised your head to comfort your senior and said that you had a way to complete the results for the second half of this year. Your senior was surprised and bluntly advised you not to force yourself. He would help you withstand the pressure. Asaba Kazuma suddenly remembered that in the last simulation, Tamura Yuzuki directly rejected his request, and he probably had a little understanding of this person. If he guessed correctly, this direction should be the direction that he would naturally activate after choosing. But he clearly chose. In other words, no matter whether Asaba Kazuma asked Yuzuki for help or not, the senior would choose to help him resist the pressure. A good senior. If he had just entered the workplace in his previous life and met such a senior, would he not have taken that path in the future? Forget it, don't think about it so much and continue with the deduction. You contacted the underworld quietly that night. The editor-in-chief got off work early to take care of a Shibuya goddess as he was passing by an alley. The underworld you invited put a sack on him and beat him up. 15 minutes after Hisewi left, you pretended to be passing by and helped the editor-in-chief untie the sack. He looked at you gratefully and seemed to think that you had become more pleasing to the eye. After helping the editor-in-chief get into the car, you turned around and contacted Fairy Kimura, saying that you had something urgent and needed consultation. Fairy Kimura thought about your help to her during this period and told you her home address. You choose. Kidnap the goblin, take photos, and threaten Rina Ishihara. The taste of fairies is really good. Fairy, I want you to help me practice. Free simulation. This option was not serious again. Asahi Kazuma tasted it for a minute and hesitantly chose. Although he really wanted to try the taste of goblins, he knew that there were not many times left for him. He had to at least figure out the core mechanism of this game first, right? You arrived at Fairy Kimura's house and suddenly pushed her to the ground to try the rope skills you just learned on the way. Asaba Kazuma closed the curtains and looked at Kimura Fairy, who was gagged and unable to speak completely. He loosened her ties a little, patted her on the shoulder and said, "Bear with it, it won't hurt soon." Then he picked up Goblin's cell phone, posed for her, and pinched Goblin's thigh hard. Fairy Kimura whimpered, struggled for a moment, and mist appeared in his eyes. "Hey, I can play with these legs for a year." Qian Yufengjian didn't show any regret at all. He raised his phone and took a bunch of photos. Opening the little bluebird backstage, he found Rina-chan's profile picture and clicked on it. Suddenly, the Kimura fairy beside him started struggling. Asaba Kazuma looked in surprise at the photos of himself sent by the fairy to Rina-chan in the background. Not to mention, this photo is quite beautiful. When did this guy secretly take so many photos? This explains the origin of Rina Ishihara's lock screen picture. Lily Garcia, you are indeed a pervert. He looked at the eloquent but rosy-cheeked girl without surprise. Unfortunately, I am too. He directly sent the photo of the tied-up goblin to Rina-chan, and then added, "Rina-chan, you don't want anything to happen to your good friend, right?" After a while, a message was sent from the background. "Who are you? What are you going to do to Lily-chan?" "I didn't want to do anything to her. I was mainly curious about you. What do you need from me?" "Don't attack innocent people," Ishihara Rina replied quickly. Kinya Kazuma smiled and immediately replied, "I want you."